Today we're honored to welcome Jason Shumard to the show today. I'm very excited to have him on, and we're going to talk about some very important topics that are affecting a lot of people. If not you, then probably somebody that you know, right? There's so many different methods and ways that we can go about this, but regulate blood sugar, diabetes, there's so many different things that go into this, right? And ultimately, it's being able to learn all these things and apply it for our own lives to become more empowered. And that's what it's all about. I mean, this man has an amazing story that I'm very excited to get into. He has a lot of different topics that we talk about. Today, we're going to walk away with things that we can apply in our own lives and ultimately walk away with empowerment and education. So that's what it's all about, and we're very happy to have him on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
100%. So very curious to hear your story and how you got into health and wellness and how you're being of service today.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting one. Not one that I suspected was going to be the case when I was going to school. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. So when I was going to school, I was, traditional chiropractor looking to help people, athletes and, spinal injuries, etc. But during the course of my studying, my mom was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And like many people, I just suspected proper management, lifestyle, medication, she'll be fine. Well, I couldn't be more further from the truth. So as things continued to worsen in her body, even though she was trying to do all the right things, taking more medications, started seeing her, quality of life declining, I just knew there had to be a better way. So fortunately, the school that I went to had a lot of opportunities, and I found functional medicine and started going to some courses. And as a student, I was able to get some discounts. So it kind of helped as well with the pocketbook, if you will. I started getting introduced to functional blood chemistry and functional endocrinology and all these things out there that I didn't even know existed. And once I got out of school, I've continued my studies and eventually was able to get more confident in how I could help individuals with insulin resistance and diabetes essentially take their diabetes into remission. Well, so essentially my mom is what pushed me to learn this type of condition. But unfortunately, I found a very strong lesson at the same time is that when I took all this information and started to introduce to her what can be done, she was not interested. She was not interested in doing anything, changing her life. She was more interested in following the recommendations of her doctors because they were telling her she was on a good course. And unfortunately, she continued to get worse with time. And eventually, her type 2 diabetes is what caused her early death. And so at that time, I was able to start pushing it to other patients that I was working with in our traditional chiropractic office and started helping them, introducing them to functional medicine. We had some type 2 diabetics, and I saw there was a need. So I started to transition fully from a traditional chiropractor into functional medicine doctor. I started doing that around 2007, 2008, roughly. We're full-time, hired an associate doctor, and I've been a functional medicine practitioner and haven't really been doing any traditional chiropractic ever since.
Awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I feel like a lot of us have gotten into the space through our own story or someone that we love, right? Just being able to have that passion developed through these things, and we learn all these things, and we're so on fire to help as many people as possible can once we do. So I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, it was a process that I was not expecting, but I get to help so many people every single day. It's an incredible passion, and I get to. Essentially, I don't feel like I work, right? I feel like I'm just I get to be around people who are looking for help, who are looking for a better way and a better life, and it's a blessing to be able to do it.
100%. So functional medicine, it's such a vast topic as well, right? Like, to my understanding, there's so much testing that goes into this so we can kind of pinpoint the issue. Is that right?
Yeah, so testing is an important asset because we can identify where the physiology is breaking down. I kind of give an analogy would be like, if you're driving your car and you start to see that check engine light come on, well, your car is still able to drive. It's just an indication there's a problem going on. And eventually, if you don't fix it, the car's going to break down. Well, unfortunately, the human body does not have a check engine light, right? So it just either breaks down or you start feeling symptoms. But if we do proper analytics and testing, this can be blood testing, hormone analysis, saliva, stool, urine, etc. There's multiple types of tests that can be ran. We can start to identify where the check engine lights are showing up before the disease, before the symptoms occur. And if we can identify that and then move them back into that healthy range, reducing the chances of that ever happening. And that's where functional medicine really thrives. Not waiting for the disease or the symptoms to occur, capturing it beforehand and keeping that person as healthy as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I would imagine a large part of it is lifestyle based. Like a lot of these things, like power is really in our hands. And like once we start to shift these factors, I'm sure there are fundamental principles in terms of sleep, nutrition, exercise, but then we kind of personalize that approach based on that individual. Is that right?
100%. I mean, I think we all understand that lifestyle is a foundation, right? If you're not sleeping well, if you're not getting some exercise, if you're not eating well, then you have a poor foundation. I mean, your house is built upon a foundation that's either sound or not. If there's cracks in it, doesn't matter how beautiful your house is or how well it was built, it's going to fall over. So our foundation needs to be our lifestyle. It's something that we work with because oftentimes we'll meet individuals who just have no clue how to eat or what to do, and others that are very well educated just need some fine tuning to get them into that more stabilization so we can continue to build and grow from there.
Yeah, I feel like so many of us, we just kind of go for the shiny thing and like the quick fixes and all that, but it really comes down to fundamentals, right? As you know, then we kind of personalize that approach and we just kind of blown away by the results that we see in our own lives. And we didn't even understand that this is actually a possibility. We can actually feel well.
Yeah, yeah. And it's it's interesting how many people have this belief pattern that as I get older, I'm supposed to have problems or symptoms and be on medications. I'm supposed to have these issues going on. And it's not really the truth because if we look around our peers, there are likely people who are older than us that have more energy and they're having this vibrant life and we're not there. And there's people younger than us that are sicker than us. So it's like, it's really based upon, like you said, it's understanding and motivation and drive to really take care of yourself, because I believe health is an investment, just like your 401k. And if you invest in your health today, it's going to pay dividends in your future.
Yeah, I'm glad I mentioned that because a lot of us, we just carry around these old beliefs and paradigms that we can't get well. Like we just kind of think it's how it is. But the reality is if we start to shift that mindset, we start to look beyond our current paradigm, we can shift our actions, right? And you also mentioned like we see people around us. I was like, so it must not be impossible because other people are doing it. We just have to kind of like be a little bit more optimistic and start to ask better questions too.
100%. I mean, there's so many clear studies out there that show that belief in something, belief in getting better, belief in getting healthy, belief that you can be at a better optimized you is 70% of the healing capacity, right? That means only 30% comes from the actual treatment itself, if you will. So belief has such a strong power. And if we believe that we're going to be sick, we're going to be decrepit, well, then that's going to happen. But if you believe the opposite, that you have this vibrance and ability to heal, that's going to happen as well. It plays such a powerful role in the overall healing capacity.
Yeah, I mean, placebo is such a great example of that, like your power of belief. I mean, in the studies, it's like 33% effective, right? It's like blows people away. The power of the mind right there.
100%. And I think that's such a powerful product there. And I always tell people, like, listen, reversing type 2 diabetes starts 6 inches between your ears, right? That motivation, that drive, that belief that you can actually get better. Once that's there and you become committed to the process, it's a no-brainer at that point. The rest of the stuff is just, allowing the time your body needs to go through that healing process. It's going to happen. We just got to get you there in that mindset first.
100%. So in terms of diabetes, can we go over the different types first? Like, because a lot of us, we think of type 2, but there are others as well. Like, would you like to get into that and how we can kind of think about it?
Yeah, there's actually way more than people believe, right? They just keep coming up with more. At this point, there's up to 5 different types of diabetes. It's pretty interesting. But the most common ones that we know of is type 1 and type 2. The major difference between type 1 and type 2 is one is considered insulin dependent. And what that means is that the main organ in their body, the pancreas, is no longer able to produce the insulin that is necessary. Because insulin is key. It's the key components. And actually, that's how I describe it. It is a key. So when we consume food, our food gets converted to glucose or sugar. That's our fuel source and our gastrointestinal system. It gets released into our bloodstream, which then triggers the pancreas to release insulin. And then insulin now attaches itself to the blood sugar, which then drags itself down to the cells. On the outside layer of the cells, there's these little receptors. I look at it as like a key, right? And so insulin attaches to that key and opens up, the key of insulin attaches and opens up the door that allows the sugar to enter our cells, into our mitochondria, and that's how the action step of ATP or energy production occurs. This is a basic fundamental function for human beings for us to live and thrive. And every single cell in our body, there's trillions of them, require the same process. But as a type 1, the inability for the pancreas to produce the insulin becomes a major issue, which means if there's no key to unlock the door, the sugar just builds up into the bloodstream, leaving this person very vulnerable and dangerous. And the reason why the pancreas most time is not producing enough insulin is because most commonly it's an autoimmune disease where the immune system is attacking, destroying the ability for the pancreas to produce insulin. This typically happens in younger individuals. Adolescents below 18 is when they're typically diagnosed. Can it happen in adulthood? Yeah, it is very rare. People oftentimes they misinterpret if they're taking insulin that they're now a type 1. That's not the case at all. It's typically more common in adolescents. Now, type 2 is a completely different mechanism because the process is all working, right? Your GI is converting your glucose or your food to sugar or glucose. Your pancreas is producing enough insulin. The problem is where the insulin is attaching to the receptor is closed. It's faulty. Just like, if you throw too much water on a plant, it wilts the plant. The receptor becomes wilted and is not able to accept the insulin. So now the insulin is resisted to get into the resistance. That's why it's called insulin resistance. The cell cannot open its doors. The sugars get pushed back in the bloodstream, causing elevated sugars. So type 1 is a direct organ inability to produce the hormone, insulin. And type 2 is the inability for the insulin to get into the receptor and the cells allowing to accept the sugar. So hopefully, does that make sense, the difference between the two?
Yeah. Thanks for that explanation. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Type 3 diabetes is kind of like something I'm interested in because it affects the brain, right? It's like insulin resistance in the brain. It's such an important thing to take control of because it affects everything within our bodies, right?
Yeah, 100%. Type 3 is now more common. We used to talk about it a lot in the 2000s, early 2000s, when I used to just talk about this. No one had heard about it at that time, but it's very well known now because you're right. Because remember, every single cell is brain cells, right? You have brain cells, and they require a massive amount of glucose. And so if you do not have enough glucose or sugar for your brain cells, they start dying one by one by one by one. And because the brain makes up this huge tissue, we start to see a downsizing because there's less and less tissue, which is referred to as Alzheimer's or dementia. So actually the insulin resistance happening in the brain is what leads to the dementia and Alzheimer's, which is why type 3 is associated with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Got it. And if type 1, I find a lot of times the belief is that it's just something you're born with, but I feel like there's more recent data showing there's some lifestyle factors that can be at play with the mother. Have you come across anything like that?
There's so many mechanisms. Genetics play a role. Like you said, it can be something transferred from the mom to baby. Because remember, most of the type 1 situation is where the immune system is actually attacking the islet cells, the beta cells, the ability for them to produce the insulin in the pancreas. And so if you destroy enough of those, just like any other autoimmune disease, right? If you have an autoimmune disease to your joints called rheumatoid arthritis, your joints become degraded. If it's to your nervous system, it's called MS, right? You degrade the nervous system. If it's to your GI, it's called celiac, right? There's different types of autoimmunes. This one is directly impacting the pancreas, and it can happen to something in utero. It can happen to someone in the first 10 years of their life, or even the second 10 years of their life as well. It can happen at any time. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming on out there of beta cell implantation, kind of like stem cells that are being implanted into the pancreas, and they're able to start producing their own insulin again. Really cool stuff, really good action there. But again, on top of that, there is a high percentage, or I shouldn't say a high, just a percentage of these individuals, once you understand and identify what the link is or the mechanism that is driving the autoimmune, because remember, the immune system is not supposed to attack our body. It's supposed to protect us. So typically there's something driving it. It can be things like chronic infections, toxicities, chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalances. There's a lot of things that can drive immune dysregulation. And oftentimes if you identify that and start to stop that communication of the immune system attacking the tissue, you can actually, if there's still of those beta cells available, they can start producing their own insulin again. So we've actually seen that in some individuals as well. Once you stop the autoimmune, the person can start producing their own insulin again as well. It's pretty amazing stuff.
It's incredible, man. So when it comes to type 2 diabetes, What are the causes of that, and how is that it's like so prevalent in today's world?
Yeah, it's interesting because most people believe that type 2 diabetes is strictly a lifestyle mechanism. And don't get me wrong, it is a contributing factor. It is one of the things that could be going on, because when you look at the mechanism of this, just to kind of go real simplistic, if you're eating poor quality food, things like, breads, pastas, cookies, candies, etc., well, those things convert very rapidly in your digestive tract, and it's released very rapidly. So think about this. You consume food and you release a ton of sugar very rapidly, which then requires a ton of release of insulin. So as I mentioned earlier, insulin, its main job is to get into the insulin receptor. And like I said, when you have, it's like too much water on a plant, it wilts it. So if you have too much insulin over time around the cells, over time you can start causing the receptor to get sicker and sicker. So that's why lifestyle plays a role. It's not the food itself, it's the rapidness of these things happening year after year, decade after decade, and enough of that damage can create that. But then there's other mechanisms that are driving this as well. That's just one of the mechanisms, and there's hundreds of them that can happen. There could be hormonal imbalances. We know that estrogen dominance, testosterone dominance, these things can actually impact your cells and the receptors as well. We could have chronic inflammation from different things the person's exposed to. There could be infection patterns. Chronic infections also create this systemic inflammatory reaction, this catastrophic event that can really impact your cells. Toxicities play a role. But there's also the organs that are involved directly with blood sugar regulation, things like the liver, the kidney, the gut, the thyroid, even the brain, right? The adrenal glands. These are all problems that can break down inside the body that can drive it. This is what's so unique about type 2 diabetes, is that the person can have the same diagnosis and have different underlying causes. And if we only focus on one, lifestyle, yeah, that may help a certain percentage of individuals, but if they have these other issues going on, it's gonna get worse with time. And that's probably the most common individual that we see in our practice is they're eating pretty well, they're exercising, they've lost some weight, they're doing all the right things, but their blood sugars continue to rise because these other issues have never been identified and haven't been addressed.
Wow, makes a lot of sense. It just like makes sense how everything is such in synergy, right? Everything works together. You can't neglect anything, because even if it's seemingly not related, it really is in some type of way.
Yeah, the body is it's like the old song, right? The hip bone's connected to the knee bone, et cetera. It's all connected. And when there's a kink in the chain, things start to break down. Now, initially, the body's very intelligent. It can adapt to these things, but over time, as that adaptability gets weakened, that's when symptoms arise. And what's interesting is most people believe once the symptoms arise, that's when the problem started. No. That's when it's at its worst. That's when it's finally now severe. And this is the reason why it's so frustrating, because, again, we don't have a check engine light. But if we can identify these problems before they develop, how many people would love to know they're going to have a heart attack before the heart attack? Well, there's tests that can be ran that can show you risk factors, not just your cholesterol being high. There's really important tests that can be ran on a blood test that are rarely ever ran in the traditional medical model to identify, is this person at a higher risk or not? And if they are, we can do things now. But most of these tests are ran after the heart attack to identify that they were a problem, because most of these tests have no associated pharmaceutical drugs with them.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I would imagine, like, in terms of lifestyle, it's all related. Like, of course, nutrition, but then you have sleep, exercise, stress management, they're all playing together. And, like, the cause could be, or at least a huge contributing factor could be, like, maybe sleep. Because you said, like, everything, if you have some things dialed in, but not the others, could work in something that could be not affecting it in a way that we see, right? Because we can focus on nutrition, exercise, but then the sleep thing or stress management, all playing together, and just being aware of these things is the most important thing.
And some of those things are they don't cost any money, right? And it's simple type of things that can be done, but most people don't recognize these things. Probably one of the most common things that I see when people don't sleep well, first thing I ask is, do you sleep with your TV on? They're like, yeah, of course I do. And they don't realize that when their eyes are closed, the eyes can still see the light from the TV, and it's a blue light. And blue light actually stimulates the brain. And so they don't recognize that. Or they're on their phone before going to sleep, or their iPad or an e-reader. And that blue light is constantly impacting their brain and igniting the cones and rods in their eyes and stimulating their brain. It's like, I can't fall asleep. I can't stay asleep. Well, no wonder your brain is in constant activity mode where you're not allowing it to calm down. or they have maybe a night light in their bedroom or a light to keep on in the bathroom. All those things can impact your ability to sleep, or even EMFs, keeping your phone on next to you while you're sleeping, right? You should be shutting it down unless you need to keep it on because maybe someone may be calling you in the middle of the night that you need to answer the phone. Keep it at least 6 to 8 feet away from you. So it requires you to get up and go get it, but it's not near your body. Turning off your Wi-Fi can be an important thing. I mean, making sure you have blackout type curtains to make sure you're reducing any light that's coming in from an outside, maybe your neighbor or somewhere else. So all these things play a role in our ability to have good quality sleep, and it's just an easy thing to make some easy transitions, right? Turn off all electronics 1 hour to 30 minutes before going to bed, and then read a book. Right, the old school black and white book, right? Because that helps calm your brain. It's relaxing things, and it's easier for you to transition to going to sleep.
Yeah, the evening routines can be so important. Just like setting up yourself for success, which it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't cost anything, right? And you said some other things like oxygen. It's free, right? And so many of us don't breathe normally. We breathe from our chest when we should be breathing from our belly and our diaphragms, getting that full oxygenation. Most adults are only getting about the top third of their lungs filled on a regular basis, and the bottom 2/3 is not really getting any oxygen. So we're hypo-oxygen. We don't have enough oxygen in our body. Oxygen and sugar combined is how we create ATP, or energy. So oxygen is key. And it's interesting how, like, if you ever feel like you're in a place where you're super stressed out or you're super overwhelmed, if you just sit down and take 10 deep breaths, it immediately changes your physiology. Your brain can think better. You're like, man, I feel like I'm like my molecules, my cells just feel different, because you're basically filling your body with oxygen, and it's this free thing we have around us, and hardly anybody ever uses it appropriately.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, in terms of the numbers of diabetes, like, what are we looking at here? Like, how prevalent is this? Like, how many people have it, or pre-diabetes as well? Like,
yeah, it's pretty incredible. Roughly about, the statistics are all a little bit unknown, but 26 to 29 million people in the United States alone have a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. It's a massive, massive number. But even more massive is the pre-diabetes, because some stats say as high as 40%, and others say as high as 50% of the population is pre-diabetic. Some of them know, some of them don't know, because sometimes people aren't getting regular blood checks on blood tests, even physicals, on a yearly basis. So they may go 2, 3, 4, 5 years without ever getting a blood test and knowing what's going on in their body. But it's interesting because, with pre-diabetes, many people think, I can just manage this with lifestyle. And some of them can, by the way. Some of them can just manage it with lifestyle. But if they don't understand if they have these underlying problems that I talked about earlier are going on in their body, it doesn't matter if they change their lifestyle. It's going to move into full-blown diabetes as enough of those cells become damaged. And they're over here thinking, well, I'm eating well, I'm doing everything right. What's going on? And it's because they haven't been identified what's really going on, or even really been told the other mechanisms that could be driving this diabetic condition. So pre-diabetes, I always say, is like pre-pregnancy. There is none. Like, the process is starting. Like the cellular damage is happening inside your body. So you could either put a piece of black tape over the check engine lights, or you can take this as a warning sign saying, maybe there's something else going on here. I should probably be evaluated to see what needs to be done.
Yeah, very interesting. These numbers are huge, man. It's like so prevalent. It's something you definitely got to take care of. I mean, it's not a surprise due to like the modern world and everything. It's like, it really stacks the conditions against you to make it a lot easier to get.
Oh, I mean, think about our food supply, the quality of our food, the pesticides that are being sprayed on it. I always tell people, I'm like, listen, if you're going to the grocery store and you look at the back of a bottle or something, and you don't understand or can't pronounce something, you probably shouldn't eat it. I mean, not that we should be eating potato chips, but should there be anything else inside that bag besides potatoes? But you look at the ingredients are this long, right? And why are all those ingredients there? To make it taste better and to start to create a chemical reaction in your brain to tell you want more, and you want more, to buy more. The food industry is very intelligent. They know exactly what they're doing, and the goal is for you to consume more of their product. And that's by using specific chemistry. Most of their manufacturing of the product is not the food they're buying, it's the chemicals and the scientists that are creating to want you to eat more of these foods. And if you know this, then you would just follow an easy way of doing things. We live out of our refrigerator, we die out of our cupboard, right? So eat the perishable foods, right? The ones that are in your fridge, stay away from the ones, I mean, you can doomsday prep if you want to and put the stuff aside, just don't eat it until that doomsday happens at that point. But eat the food that's in your fridge. That's a much better way of living.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like they use a gas chromatograph, right? Just being able to mimic flavor and have all these things like just make you so addicted. It's unfortunate,
And a
just
lot
being
of
aware
it
that
are
in of itself is important.
100%. A lot of these things are excitotoxins, right? People they know what excitotoxins are. They just don't know the mechanisms of it. The most famous excitotoxin is MSG, right? Monosodium glutamate. And people always say, well, they'd say, oh yeah, MSG is bad, but they don't understand the reason why MSG is bad, right? And that's one of the first ever chemical produced for improving the flavor of something so that you want to eat more of it, right? But excitotoxins are very dangerous because what they do is they cause your neurons, your nerves to go into an excitatory mode, and they basically excite themselves like a crazy ADD little kid, and they just go crazy and they get out of control and they just crash, right? And the same thing happens with your neurons, but they don't just crash, they die. And so that's why excitotoxins are such a major problem. And they're using it in like spicing, natural flavors, so they're tricking the names now, and they're the same mechanism, same problems that can create these brain dysfunctions.
Yeah, they give them these like names that we don't. It's hard to see. It's called like is it health washing, where they kind of like make it look a lot healthier than it is, but it's not.
1000%. I mean, it's all about marketing, right? If you make a word look like it's like a positive then rather than a negative, people are going to say, oh, this looks like it's healthy, so I'm going to go ahead and consume this. I mean, a big one these days, a big catchy one is like gluten-free, right? Gluten-free is like a big new catchy word, but it doesn't mean that every single gluten-free product is actually a good quality product. And if you look at it, oftentimes there's other things they put in there that are just not good for your body. And now, but it's gluten-free. But again, that's just one component. You have to be able to look at the labels and identify if it's something you should consume or not.
Yeah, I mean, just like organic, right? I mean, like organic, of course, very important. But then you look at it, and it's like there's a lot of processed food within there. Even though it's like organic, it's like you have to be mindful of these things and look at things from different perspectives. Like, is this real food? Right? Is this like our ancestors ate? All these things, they work together. Just having it work in your mind like that can help you make better decisions.
100%. And you said it perfectly there. Like, think of our ancestors, and it should be something that's consumed that's going to be good for your body. Just because it has a good marketing label on it doesn't mean it's actually going to be a good product. You have to do your research. You have to understand what you're buying. And that's why, yes, it might cost you a little more to shop at these higher quality health food stores. But the good news is these health food stores are usually doing a lot of the vetting for you. So now it's not going to be perfect, but the type of foods they're going to sell in these, natural grocers or Sprouts or even like Whole Foods, etc., they're going to have better quality there, and you're going to spend a little bit more money, but you won't have to be as an extensive label reader. You should still read the labels, but rather than shopping at like say Kroger or Vons or Ralph's or even Walmart's and those places, even though they do have some better options there, it's just more challenging. It's harder, and unless you're a good label reader, you may consume something that's not good for you.
100%. So when it comes to pre-diabetes, you had mentioned is like a lot of hormonal related things. It's like, are there any symptoms that would come up to you that would kind of indicate that something that someone is experiencing?
Yeah, the common symptoms we would see, I mean, probably one of the most common ones is going to be more often urination, right? And that's a big one. And so again, a lot of type 2 diabetics start to experience these things in our 40s or 50s or somewhere around there. And it's commonly another association, maybe prostate as well, right? So they kind of think, oh, I'm just getting older, I'm just peeing a little more, blah, blah, blah. But it's not really the case. The body is trying to get this excessive sugar out, right? It's trying to push it out through your urine, so it's making you go more often, and that's one of the mechanisms behind that. But another common one, especially with the hormonal imbalances, because everyone's heard of like metabolic syndrome, right? Now, what metabolic syndrome happens, especially in males, is that they start to overproduce estrogens. They start to increase their estrogens, in their body, and they start to get more belly fat. They start to get more fat around their chest area. They start to become more fatigued. Their testosterone starts to go lower as well because they're converting their testosterone to estrogen. It's called aromatization. And this is happening, it's commonly between that 40 and 50 range. And they just think, oh, I have no energy and everything else. And that may be something they're experiencing. And they're just thinking, oh, I'm just getting older and more and losing the ability to function as well. So fatigue is a big one as well. Not being able to sleep as well. Weight gain, as I mentioned. Just like kind of losing like, and I'm speaking from a male perspective here, losing that like male persona, right? That like strong individual. And females, it's a little bit different. They can have similar symptoms. They'll start to have more weight gain, more fatigue. They can have some more problems like with digestive issues is a common one, brain fog, sleep issues. We start to see these things. But again, if you think about those symptoms, they're very broad spectrum symptoms. They could be caused by multiple different things. And so many people don't associate it directly with diabetes because those same symptoms could be thyroid issues. They could be problems with, digestive problems like with bowel inflammation or IBS. They could be adrenal issues. There's just so many things that could be going on here. And to really correlate it, it's got to be diabetes is very challenging because sometimes you can go in, even you're experiencing these symptoms, and you're not seeing your sugars elevated, right? Because oftentimes sugars being elevated is a latent symptom. You could be experiencing these symptoms for 10, 15 years and your sugars, quote unquote, are still within range because there's not enough cells that are damaged yet showing that symptom. Remember, elevated sugars is only a symptom of the diabetes, it's not the cause. So even though the entire focus is to lower sugars, it's a cell problem, not a sugar problem.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of the medical system, how are they treating this? Like, how are they dealing with this? And like, what are the results we actually see?
Yeah, with the medical system, they're doing the best job they can do, right? And they're when you look at chronic degenerative diseases like type 2 diabetes in the medical world, they're focusing on the symptoms, right? If it's an autoimmune or if it's some sort of joint problem, they're going to give them pain medications. Or if it's elevated cholesterol, blood pressure, they're going to give them medications to lower the cholesterol, lower the blood pressure. Well, it's no different with diabetes, right? And they're going to give you the standard answer: change the way you eat, very broad. Start exercising, very broad. Lose some weight, again, very broad. And then take this medication. And they're usually some sort of blood sugar lowering medication. The primary medication most people are given is called metformin. It's the entry-level medication. And essentially what metformin does is it slows down the release of sugar from the gastrointestinal system, and it starts to reduce gluconeogenesis, which is the production of sugar at the liver level as well. And so by doing these two mechanisms, the goal is to reduce the amount of sugar entering your bloodstream. And so when we do that, we're going to lower your sugars overall and things look better on paper type of thing. But the reality is if they just stop that medication, the problem goes right back up again because the underlying issue was never addressed. So essentially the medical model is focused on the symptom, which is lowering sugars, and never identifying or addressing the true problem, which is the cells being damaged.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to my understanding, the ADA has actually admitted that you can heal it through lifestyle, right? But the crazy thing is nothing has changed in terms of the actual treatment.
And that's the thing, like if you look at some of the stats, which is pretty terrible, right? The biggest study that we have to date is a 2019 study by Kaiser Permanente. Roughly around, I'm going to butcher some of the numbers, but between 5 and 600,000 people or whatever we evaluated. And it was a retroactive study to identify the individuals that actually followed what they considered standard of care. And standard of care is they took their medication regularly, they actively worked on changing their diets, they were actively doing some sort of exercise, there was no specifics, just some sort of exercise, and they were trying to lose weight. So that was their categorization of standard of care, those 4 things. If those 4 things were happening to some capacity, they included these individuals in the study. Well, interestingly enough, the individuals that were actually doing those things and actually reversing, meaning they were off medications and had a normal blood sugar ranges, was a very small percentage. It was roughly about I don't know, it's like 1.5 to 2% were actually able to do that in that study. So it's very, very small. But the problem was when they kept on following these individuals, a good like 50% of them went back to being diabetic again. And the reason for that is because what we know now is that lifestyle alone is not the fix for diabetes. It has to be a foundation. You have to be doing that type of thing. But if you do that alone, lifestyle, it will not fix diabetes, which is why we know these other mechanisms that I mentioned here earlier, they have to be identified for the individual. Because if they have a liver problem, if they have a gastrointestinal issue, if they have underlying toxins, and if they eat perfectly fine and they weigh 155 pounds and you're 5'10" male, you're going to have diabetes. It's not going to get better, right? It's not going to get better because the lifestyle alone is only one problem. You have to address the toxins, you have to address the liver problem, the GI problem as well to make sure that, that whole system is working optimally again. Now your cells can start to regenerate and heal and do their job again, is to accept those sugars appropriately.
Yeah. Can you describe hemoglobin A1C and how kind of it interplays with diabetes?
Yes. So hemoglobin A1C is essentially a 90-day average of how well the blood sugars are being managed. So when you look at hemoglobin, you can see little blood sugar molecules on there, and they can evaluate that from a 90-day perspective to identify, is there large amounts of sugar in the bloodstream and that's circulating in the body, or is there lower amounts? So the hemoglobin A1C is essentially the gold standard identification of if you have elevated sugars or not. Because your glucose, your fasting glucose and glucose is fluctuating throughout the day. So you could go in to see your doctor today and your glucose could be 95 and tomorrow it could be 180, right? So it's fluctuating. So the A1C can tell you more of what that sustained averages are over that 90-day period. So it is that gold standard. A normal non-diabetic is somewhere between 5 and 5.6. That's an A1C of 5 to 5.6. That's someone with no medication and they're just managing their body. That's the majority of individuals who do not have prediabetes or diabetes. Anything between a 5.7 to 6.4 is considered prediabetes, which means that the elevated sugars are happening. They're higher than where they should be and they're consistently higher where they should be, but not at an elevated state to have a full-blown diagnosis. Anything above a 6.5 is considered type 2 diabetes. Anything above a 7 indicates that the diabetes is out of control. So in the medical model, they're using this marker to identify if the person's current treatment protocols is working, meaning is it under a 7, that means it's working. If it's above a 7, it's not working, and they're going to either increase the dosage or they're going to add additional medication. That's the algorithm. So there is no identification of why it's there, what's happening, how to fix it. We're just going to give you the pharmaceutical drug associated with your number. And when you come in every 3 to 6 months, if it's above a 7, more medication. If it's below a 7, we'll see you in 6 months.
Got it. Now, in terms of solutions, so what are we looking at here? Like, how should we be addressing diabetes? Like, in terms of actually healing, right? And actually getting to the other side of this thing. Like, what do you recommend personally?
Yeah, the first thing obviously is if you're not doing this yet, make sure you have sort of work on your lifestyle. Now, it's important if you don't understand what that means, then find and seek somebody out who can help you, because just, reducing your carbohydrates is not what I'm referring to here. You have to understand, the type of foods you should be consuming, when you should be eating, how often you should be eating. There's even some portion size would probably be a part of this as well. So if you're not clear on this, seek someone out who can help you, because there's some science behind this that needs to be done. It's not just about cutting your carbs, right? That'll help for a period of time, but that won't be sustainable, and you won't be able to, you'll just continue seeing things worse. The next step is going to be if you do lifestyle, and say you do it for 3 to 6 months and you're consistent with it and you're seeing some good results, then continue with what you're doing. That's a good place to start. But if you're not seeing good results, if you're still seeing your sugars are elevated, you're still taking your medication, that's a strong indication that there are other mechanisms involved. So it's an easy way to identify this. You do this for 6 months, you're not off your medication or you're still on medication, there's more problems that need to be addressed. Now you need to find someone, specifically a functional medicine practitioner is what I recommend, because unfortunately the traditional medical model will not evaluate you looking for cause or solution. They're going to evaluate you to see what medications you need and help you manage it. Two completely different ways of doing things. Managing compared to creating a solution. So once you go to a functional medicine practitioner, they're going to evaluate you, they're going to run testing. Standard tests are going to be typically a much more robust, comprehensive blood test, looking at more areas to identify what not is in a disease process, but what is essentially broken or not functioning optimally. Remember that check engine light situation? We're looking for check engine lights. They could be evaluating your hormones. They could be looking at maybe infection patterns, toxicities. All of these things have to be looked into, and they may not run every single test, but we need to look at certain things to identify what areas are functioning optimally in your body and which ones are not. Once we identify that, that's where the easy part comes in. Now we can start customizing more what you should and should not be eating, because now we know how we can put together a plan of what type of foods you should be consuming associated with your problems to help your body heal more effectively. And then we can bring in what are called nutraceuticals. And nutraceuticals are essentially blends of supplements and herbs based upon very intelligent scientists that have identified this herb, this supplement is better, is going to help your adrenal function or your liver, or whatever you're working on. So then rather than taking 5 different products, you can take one because it's blended into one to address that specific problem. When you combine the nutraceuticals with the nutrition plan, then all you need is time, right? It's just the time allowing your body to go through that healing process and then repeating these tests to identify, is the physiology improved? Are you seeing symptomatic improvement as well? Now we know we're moving in the right direction until we can get to a place where it's as close as we can get it and then help you maintain it.
Got it. And I'm glad you mentioned it's just not about lowering the carbs. But of course, that's part of it, but it's more so about eating a real food, right? Because if you're lowering your carbohydrates in an ultra-processed food diet, I don't know how much it's going to help, right? So you have to eat real food on it, like from nature, not the lab.
100%. I mean, think about most people don't realize that vegetables are carbohydrates, right? They're carbohydrates, but they don't see that as a carbohydrate. They see breads, pastas, cookies, cakes as carbohydrates, which they are. They're the terrible ones, if you will. And by removing those, you're going to make a dramatic change in your life for sure. But like you said, there's more to it than just removing things. You have to know exactly how you should be eating, right? Many times we meet with individuals and they're like, yeah, I'm eating well. And we look at how they're eating, and it's like, yeah, they're doing a decent job, but it's not optimized for their body's needs. And that's where things can really come into play when you start working with a professional.
Yeah. You mentioned like pinpointing the issue and seeing if there's anything else that is contributing to it by like doing all these testing and functional medicine. Like if people are like trying everything, and is that an indication maybe they're dealing with some other type of infection that could be kind of affecting upstream or downstream?
100%. Like if you're at a place where you're like, I still don't feel right, or I'm still not, you're kind of stagnant, that means something else is being missed, right? And this happens a lot. Like there's probably maybe 10 to 20% of the patients that we see are coming to us from another practitioner. They did a great job. The practitioner did a great job. They addressed some things, but got to a place where they're plateaued, and they're like, I feel like there's something else going on here. We go a deeper layer. We now identify what that is, and now we can start to get them over that threshold, if you will. The great thing about functional medicine is that there's an endless amount of things that we can identify for and look into. It's just asking the right questions and identifying where we need to go next. And so we're not trying to find problems. We're trying to identify what that problem is for you, so that we can move you along into your journey of getting healthy again.
Yeah, 100%. And just being able to listen to your body, right? Just being able to see if there's another solution and see what you actually need, right? It's a skill in of itself, because we're so like externally focused, but you actually tune in and see what can I adjust here? Is there something that is needed? Just kind of listen and just be willing to apply it, right? Just kind of go from there and move forward in terms of your healing process.
I think you're right. And so the problem is that most people don't know how to listen to their body. They don't understand the language is going on, right? Because it is a language, right? And they're going to tell them things, but most people believe if I'm in pain, I'll take a pain medication to suppress it. If I'm feeling a stomach issue, I'm going to do something for my stomach issue. So they're trying to suppress the symptom rather than trying to understand the symptom and saying, what is going on here? Because anytime there's a symptom going on, it's your body indicating that it can no longer adapt to that problem and it's trying to tell you there's an issue. Like, for a perfect example is cholesterol. Now, cholesterol going up for a majority of individuals is a mechanism that the liver is a problem. There's a problem within the liver. Now, diet can play a role, nutrition can play a role, but a lot of the research says it's only about 20 to 30% of your cholesterol production. So the rest of it is due to some of their byproducts going on. Chronic inflammation can drive elevated cholesterol. Your liver not doing its job, it's becoming sick and congested, can cause elevated cholesterol. But what is most reactions is take a cholesterol lowering medication to suppress the symptom so nothing else is being looked into, and then now that problem persists and gets worse, and then a new disease or new problem develops, and now we need a new medication for that. And so it's important that you're right. We start listening to our body and start understanding like, hey, something's not right here. I know there's not something right with me. I need to go identify what it is.
Definitely. Yeah, we just have to believe the possibility, right? We have to believe that we can get well. And know there's always a path forward, right? Because there's going to be challenges and obstacles that come up, but it's really about how we handle it, right? Not being externally focused, but it's really about what can I change within, right? It starts with our thoughts, like our questions, our mind. And then it's going to proceed to the external actions, right? And I feel like, disease can kind of forge our character in a sense. It's kind of like we start to embrace it. We kind of are doing the things necessary to live the life we're meant to lead. And on the other side, we become a model and example for what is possible. So we kind of use that as kind of inspiration, just keep moving forward too.
Yeah, I think when we oftentimes get diagnosed with some sort of disease process, it becomes a label, and we start to embrace that label. Where, we don't have to become a label. We're not a diabetic, right? You are a human being that has problems in their body who has developed a condition called diabetes, right? Which means at one time in your life, you were able to manage and regulate your own blood sugars. So why were you able to do it then and no longer now? And it's not your age. The only thing your age is relevant to is the amount of time that it took to get there, right? The damage that occurred, which means that if something has caused damage to your body, once you identify what that is, you can reverse that. You can fix those things in your body because the human body can heal. I've always said, if you have brain function, you have your heart beating, and you have circulation, you can heal at 25 or 95. It doesn't matter the age of the individual. You can heal once you start to put the puzzle together and put in the time and energy that is necessary.
Yeah, definitely. Your label becomes your limit, right? And what you focus on tends to expand. And also, a disease is a condition, which a condition can change, right? Based off our current inputs. That's
right. Yeah, but it's all about understanding like something's wrong. Now I got to identify. But the problem is, like what we've been discussing here, is that most people's first line of defense, if you will, is going to their family practitioner, their doctors, which is fine. You should be doing that. But that's for emergency. You should go to them for emergency information. So if you go there and you've got high blood pressure, you've got high cholesterol, you have a diagnosis of diabetes or whatever the diagnosis is, as long as it's not in a situation that's going to kill you right now, that's when you should go to your doctor and you should focus on that. But once you leave and they say, oh, you just got high blood pressure, here's your medication, you're not done. Now you've got to go identify why the blood pressure is high in the first place. You have to go seek out other practitioners. But most people think, oh, I'm taking this medication, it's lowered my blood pressure, I'm fine. Because that's the mentality is, I take a pill and I'm good to go. But no, unless you leave there and say, okay, now they got me stable, but now I want to go find out why is this happening so I can get off this medication in the future. But unfortunately, this education is not happening. And so the more that we scream from the mountaintops and teaching individuals this is true health, not taking a pharmaceutical drug for the rest of your life, but identifying what the problems are and getting your body healthy again, unfortunately, we're going to have a very sick society, which we currently have.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that, right? Because there's so many things that go into it, but ultimately it's for emergencies, right? We can use these things as medical emergencies, which is an extremely important thing. But also we have to understand, if the physician does not have the same goal as you, find someone else, right? You have to give yourself permission to change and actually find someone who's aligned with your goals to get you to your destination.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask your doctor and you say, hey, doc, Great, I'll start taking this statin medication, but just out of curiosity, what are we doing to fix this, and how long am I going to be on this medication? And if they say, well, you can't fix this, you're going to be on it for the rest of your life, that's a problem. That's an issue going on there. That just means there's nothing that is being identified of why this is happening in the first place. It's not because you're getting older or you've met a certain age group and now you got to be at this place again, or you got to find out what it is. And now, it's going back into investing into your health, seeking out other practitioners who can help you. It may be outside of the typical insurance model, but the reality is if you focus and just do only what the insurance model is going to allow you to do, well, that means you're going to have a very hard time getting healthy, because the insurance model is not involved in health. I mean, they have clearly sat in front of Congress and said, we are not a healthcare system. This is the health insurance models. We are a for-profit system. So their overall meaning is not to keep you healthy. It's to make money off of your disease and sickness. So unfortunately, if your focus is around an insurance model only, you're going to get worse with time. It's not there to help you. It's there to help you from dying, for sure. It'll help you from, if you have a major catastrophic event, if you have cancer, heart attacks, broken leg, internal bleeding, they're going to help you and support you, because now you're going to the emergency doctors who should be doing that. But when you leave there, you've still got to find out why it happened in the first place, right? Someone goes into remission for cancer, great, you're not done. You're just out of the emergency. Now you got to go get healthy, right? There's still more work to be done. And unfortunately, that type of stuff is not covered by medical insurances. It will require an investment out of your own pocket.
Yeah, 100%. Very unfortunate, but all right, Dr. Shumard, this has been awesome.
It won't change, unfortunately, in our lifetime. There's no way that's going to change.
Yeah, man. So appreciate you so much for coming on the show today, sharing your story with us, your insights. It's really awesome. We got a lot of information out there that can really help people, right? It's being able to have this knowledge, and because a lot of times we fear what we don't understand. So being able to paint a picture of what this is, what we're dealing with, and how to move forward is very valuable. So I'm glad you shared these insights and learning how to take the power back. The power is in our hands, and all we have to do is change that mindset first, and we go beyond that, and always look for someone who can guide you through that as well, right? Someone who actually has helped people or perhaps done it themselves. And now they're on the other side, just being of service. So thank you so much, and it's been an honor for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoyed being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so if people want to get connected with you, how can we find you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is my website. Pretty simple. It's my last name, so Dr. Shumard. That's SHUM as in Mary ARD.com. So drshumard.com. On that site, it gives a lot of information about our office. We also have a webinar that you can attend, which gives some phenomenal education on type 2 diabetes that go way more deeper into the mechanisms of it and some of the things that you can do to identify specifically what's causing your diabetes. Our social media out there as well. Dr. Jason Shumard, DC, is typically the most common one we can see out there. So love to talk to anybody who's interested in learning more about what we do.
All right. Thank you so much.